February 17, 1943. Sidi Bou Zid, central Tunisia, 8:30 in the morning. The temperature has already climbed past 35 degrees Celsius, even though the sun is still low and vicious. Heat shimmers above the stony plain like petrol fumes. The air smells of burnt rubber, cordite, and something sweeter, roasting human flesh trapped inside a brewed-up tank. In the middle of this furnace sits M4A1 Sherman, serial USA 3,067,641. Its left track is shredded into steel spaghetti by a direct hit from a flanking 8.8 cm Flak 36 the evening before. The differential housing is a gaping, blackened wound, yet the rest of the tank is eerily intact. The turret still traverses by hand. The 75 gun is elevated at a calm 15 degrees, as if the crew simply stepped out for coffee. American bodies lie 20 meters away, half covered by greatcoats against the flies. Their dog tags glint like cheap jewelry in the sun. Oberleutnant Hans Joachim von Aufklärer, technical liaison officer, 501st Heavy Tank Battalion, Afrika Korps, steps carefully through the carnage. His boots crunch on spent 75 casings that resemble oversized Coca-Cola bottles. He is 29, Berlin-educated, son of a Krupp executive, and he has never seen an enemy tank this close while it was still repairable. He climbs the front glacis. The bow machine gun barrel is still warm. Inside the driver's hatch, he finds an abandoned pack of Lucky Strikes, a half-eaten Hershey bar, and a pin-up of Rita Hayworth taped to the periscope guard. The tank smells of coffee, sweat, and castor oil, not the usual stench of burnt clutches and despair he associates with knocked-out T-34s. Aufklärer calls over his recovery sergeant, Stabsfeld Webel Karl Charlie Drescher, a former Mercedes mechanic from Stuttgart. "Charlie, how long does this pig move again?" Drescher spits, wipes his mouth with the back of a hand already black with grease, and laughs like a man who has seen God. "Herr Oberleutnant gave me 4 hours, 2 jerrycans of diesel, and 6 prisoners. This thing will follow us to Tunis under its own power. I swear on my mother." Aufklärer stares at him. German recovery doctrine for a Panther with a thrown track is measured in days, not hours. By noon, the prisoners, exhausted British Tommies from the First Army, were sweating under Drescher's barked orders. They weld a makeshift tow bar, reconnect the left final drive that somehow survived the blast, and jury-rig the throttle linkage with baling wire. At 14:03, the Continental R-975 radial coughs, catches, and settles into that distinctive American drone, half aircraft, half truck. The Sherman moves. Slowly, limping on one good track and one patched, but it moves. German soldiers who have spent 2 years watching their own machines die of heat stroke and sand ingestion stand in silence as the inferior tank crawls past them toward the recovery point. One lieutenant from the 15th Panzer Division is heard muttering, "If the Amis have 1,000 more like this, we are already dead." That night, under a sky bleeding crimson, USA 3,067,641 is loaded onto a 60-ton flatbed at the Sfaxport. Destination: Naples, then by rail straight to Kummersdorf. A handwritten note from Generaloberst Hans Eugen von Arnim himself is pinned to the tarpaulin. Priority 1A deliver intact. The Führer wishes to understand the enemy's sorcery. As the convoy rolls north, a young pioneer riding shotgun on the half-track lights an American Lucky Strike taken from the driver's compartment. He inhales, coughs, and says to no one in particular, "They fight with chocolate bars and movie stars, and their tanks refuse to break." The question hangs unanswered over the moonlit road to Tunis. Somewhere behind them, in the cooling desert, the wind erases the last footprints around the place where War Daddy II almost died, but didn't. And that refusal to die is about to travel 3,000 kilometers to shake the foundations of the Third Reich. April 21, 1943. Kummersdorf Proving Ground, 30 kilometers south of Berlin. 4:57 in the morning, a hard spring frost still clings to the pine needles. The railway siding is lit by only 3 carbon arc lamps, their blue-white glare turning every breath into smoke. A long train of flat cars hisses to a stop. Brakes squeal. Somewhere, a shunting engine coughs like an old smoker. On the third flat car sits the prisoner. USA 3,067,640. One has traveled 3,800 kilometers by sea and rail. Yet the North African sand is still wedged in every well. Someone has chalked beneath the serial number in fresh white. War Daddy II do not feed after midnight. German humor, black as the coffee ration. Waiting on the platform is a reception committee that looks more like a funeral party. Hauptmann Dr. Ing. Alfred Becker, 41 years old, holder of the Knight's Cross for designing the Panther's suspension, chain smoking like a man who already knows the ending, stands with his hands buried in the pockets of a long leather coat. Next to him is Oberstleutnant Heinrich Naus, chief of acceptance trials, face carved from granite. Behind them, 30 engineers in gray smocks clutch clipboards as though they were rosaries. A crane groans. Chains rattle. The Sherman is lowered onto German soil with the reverence usually reserved for unexploded bombs. Its tracks kiss the frost and leave two perfect olive rectangles. Becker walks a slow circle. He touches the dent where the 88 hit the differential metal pushed inward like soft wax, yet the hull did not split. He runs a gloved finger along the cast transmission cover. No hairline cracks, no weeping oil. He stops at the driver's hatch, peers inside, and inhales the ghost of chocolate, gasoline, and young American sweat. "Gentlemen," he says without turning around, "we have exactly 30 days to tear this thing apart and discover why it refuses to behave like proper enemy equipment." They wheel it into Hangar 7, a cathedral of steel and shadow, 90 meters long, once used for testing the Nebelwerfer. The doors thunder shut. Floodlights snap on. The dissection begins. First surprise, the bolts. Every single one unscrews with normal wrenches. No left-hand threads, no seized rust, no stripped heads. A young Unteroffizier named Fritz Hallmann times it. The entire side skirt assembly, 14 panels, comes off in 9 minutes flat. The equivalent on a Tiger takes 2 hours and a pneumatic drill. Second surprise, weight distribution. They jack the tank, remove the bogies, and discover the Americans have balanced the suspension so perfectly that 4 men can lift a complete VVSS unit by hand. Becker's deputy, Major Ernst Judith, no relation to the flyer, actually laughs out loud, then catches himself and pretends it was a cough. Third surprise, the transmission. They unbolt the massive rear cover, 400 kilograms of cast steel, and instead of needing the overhead gantry, 8 men simply walk it away like a dinner table. Inside, the gears gleam, double herringbone teeth, cut with a precision the Germans have only achieved on machine tools reserved for U-boat propeller shafts. The oil is still honey-colored. A mechanic dips a finger, tastes it, and announces, "Sweet, like American chewing gum." Dr. Erich Rondorf, metallurgist from Krupp, takes a gear tooth sample, scratches it with a file, and watches the file skid harmlessly. Rockwell hardness 5860, the same steel the Americans use in their civilian Ford truck axles. By midnight, the hangar is silent except for the scratch of pencils and the occasional swearing. Becker stands alone beneath the naked hull, staring up at the power pack cradle. He lights another Juno, exhales slowly, and speaks to the empty air. "They built this the way Henry Ford built Model TS. We built ours the way Wagner wrote operas. And the Americans just kept the assembly line running." At 03:40 a.m., he dictates the first entry in what will become the most dangerous report of his career. Preliminary finding: the M4 is not a tank in the German sense. It is a 30-ton all-terrain truck that happens to carry a cannon, and it appears to be immortal. He closes the notebook, looks once more at the sleeping giant suspended above him, and feels something he has not felt since 1939, genuine, cold fear. Because somewhere across the Atlantic, thousands more just like it are sliding down the ways at Detroit Tank Arsenal, Lima Locomotive Works, and Pacific Car and Foundry every single day. And not one of them cares about German theories of engineering perfection. June 9, 1943. Hillersleben artillery proving ground, Saxony-Anhalt, 5 in the morning. The sky is the color of polished steel. A light wind carries the smell of pine resin, and fresh cordite from yesterday's shoot still lingers. On the parade square in front of the officers' mess, 5 tanks are lined up like gladiators waiting for the emperor's thumb. Left to right, 1 Panther Aus. D, factory fresh from Man Nuremberg, paint still smelling of primer. 2 Tiger IE 231, Eastern Front veteran, fresh scars from Kursk trials, 43 kill rings on the barrel. 3-2 Panzer IV Aus, G from 2. Panzer Division, one commanded by the famous Hauptmann Eugen Brandt. For War Daddy II, now wearing a hasty coat of Feldgrau and large black Balkenkruisen so the range safety officers don't accidentally shell it. 5. A second M4A1, captured the previous month near Maidenine as backup, nicknamed Rita, after the pin-up still glued inside the turret. On the wooden grandstand sit the most powerful men in German armor. Reichsminister Albert Speer, immaculate dark suit, no overcoat despite the chill. Generaloberst Heinz Guderian, arms folded, jaw-working a piece of chewing gum he picked up from an American ration pack. General Friedrich Fromm, chief of the replacement army. Generalleutnant Wolfgang Thomel, Guderian's chief of staff. A dozen factory directors from Daimler-Benz, Mann, Henschel, Krupp, faces already pale. Speer rises. The entire stand comes to attention. "Gentlemen," he says, voice carrying without a microphone, "today we conduct test series Schwarzer-Reese 4312, 1,000 kilometers, mixed terrain, no factory support, only what a normal frontline workshop can perform in 60 minutes or less. The purpose is simple. We will discover whose tank can actually fight a war." He nods to the starter. A single red very flare arcs high, bursts and drifts down like blood in the dawn. Engines thunder awake. The Tiger lunges forward first, 70 tons of menace, exhausts belching blue flame. The Panther follows, sleek and fast, almost feline. The Panzer IVs clatter behind. The two Shermans sound almost apologetic, like delivery vans late for a shift. Kilometer 0200. The German tanks dominate. The Tiger reaches 46 km/h on the paved straight, crew grinning inside their steel cathedral. The Panther hits 55 km/h and corners like a sports car. The Shermans plod at a steady 38 km/h, crews sipping coffee from thermos flasks. Kilometer 380, the first casualty. The Panther throws its left track climbing a muddy embankment near the Altmark forest. Recovery crews rush out. When they open the final drive housing, the planetary gears are shattered into silver confetti. Driver Oberjefreiter Klaus Rademacher is seen vomiting beside the hull, not from fear, but from shame. Kilometer 550. The Tiger begins overheating. Transmission oil temperature climbs past 130 degrees C. The Maybach HL 230 screams like a dying animal. Commander Oberleutnant Michael Whitman, yes, that Whitman, radios calmly. "We are losing pressure, proceeding on 4 gears only." 10 minutes later, the gearbox seizes completely. The most feared tank in the world coasts to a silent stop in a cloud of steam. Kilometer 680. One Panzer IV snaps a torsion bar on a concealed anti-tank ditch. The second loses its clutch on a steep gravel climb. Both crews sit on their engines smoking, refusing to look at the Americans still moving. Night falls. Floodlights are erected along the final 300-kilometer loop. At 23:17, the first Sherman Rita rolls across the finish line. Engine temperature normal, oil pressure steady. Only 2 track pins were replaced all day. At 02:11 a.m., War Daddy II follows. The odometer reads 1,037 kilometers. The Ford GAA is idling so smoothly that it could balance a coin on the air cleaner. An American cigarette, but someone's souvenir, is still burning in the ashtray welded to the turret roof. Speer has not sat down once in 21 hours. When the second Sherman halts beside its brother, the only sound is the wind and the soft tick-tick-tick of cooling metal. Guderian breaks the silence. He walks down the steps, places a hand on War Daddy II's warm glacis plate, and says loudly enough for the microphones to catch, "Here stands the real wonder weapon of this war. And it was built by people who think a tank is just a truck with a gun." A Krupp director starts to protest. Speer silences him with a look. Later in the officers' mess over brandy no one tastes, Speer dictates a memorandum that will be classified Geheim Kommandantisch and locked in his personal safe. Conclusion after Hillersleben 9 VI 1943. The Panzer program has sacrificed the possibility for the perfect. The enemy has chosen the reliable. In modern war, reliability is perfect. He pauses, stares into the amber liquid, and adds one more line only he will ever read. God help us, because quantity has a quality all of its own, and Detroit never sleeps. Outside, under the floodlights, War Daddy II sits between the silent hulks of the Panther and Tiger like a bored foreman watching 2 drunk bodybuilders who finally punch themselves out. And for the first time in the war, The sound of an American V8 idling in the German heartland feels like the ticking of a clock counting down to zero. October 14, 1943. Reich Chancellery, Vaststrasse, Berlin. 23:47 p.m. The long table is lit only by 3 green bankers' lamps in the color of old poison. Cigarette smoke coils are so thick it has layers. At the head sits Albert Speer, sleeves rolled, tie loosened for once. Around him, Guderian General Friedrich Fromm, Generaloberst Alfred Jodl, and a dozen men whose names will never appear in any official record. On the baize cloth lies the forbidden fruit. 3 copies of WA-Proof 6 Report 43-7, Vergleichsstudie Panzer M4 vs. PZ, KPFW, V und VI. Hauptmann Dr. Alfred Becker stands to read the death sentence he himself wrote. He does not shout. He does not need to. Page 61, paragraph 4. Service life of M4 final drive and transmission assembly under simulated combat conditions. 4,100 kilometers average before major overhaul. Lowest recorded specimen, 3,470 km. Highest, 5,800 km. Panther OSF. DG average, 1,180 km. Lowest recorded, 140 km. Highest, 2,300 km single outlier. Tiger I average, 980 km. Tiger II prototype average, 680 km. Page 63. Maintenance man hours per 1,000 km in field conditions. M4 Sherman, 11.2 hours Panther, 148 hours Tiger I, 212 hours Tiger II projected, 340 hours. Page 67. Probability of catastrophic final drive failure within the first 500 km of operation. Panther, 37% Tiger I, 29% Tiger II, 51% M4, 0.8%. He closes the folder. The slap echoes like a pistol shot. Guderian is the first to speak, voice hoarse with rage and wonder. So you are telling me, Herr Doctor, that while we have been handcrafting 800 Tigers at the price of 3,000 Shermans, the Americans have built a tank whose gearbox alone is 3 times more durable than our entire power pack? Becker nods once. Fromm leans forward, eyes glittering. And the herringbone gears, can we copy them? Becker's answer is brutal. We already tried. Our current machine tools cannot hold the tolerances at production speed. The Americans cut them on modified Gleason bevel gear generators originally designed for 1938 Ford truck axles. They have 20,000 of those machines. We have 47 and half are busy making Messerschmitt parts. Silence. Speer finally speaks, soft as falling ash. Continue. Becker opens a second folder photographs. A Panther final drive housing split open like a cracked walnut. A Tiger planetary carrier with teeth sheared clean. Then the American gears, mirror bright after 4,000 kilometers of sand, mud, and Belgian cobblestones. He places the last photograph on the pile, a close-up of a single Sherman road wheel. The rubber tire is worn but intact, stenciled on the rim in yellow paint. Firestone, Akron, Ohio, October 1942. Speer stares at it for a long second. October 1942, he repeats. That wheel was made 6 months before this tank ever saw combat, and it is still rolling. He looks up. Recommendations. Becker does not hesitate. Immediate termination of Tiger II production. Suspension of Panther final drive contracts with MAN and Daimler. Emergency licensing of American herringbone technology. Mass adoption of simplified welded hulls, wet ammunition storage, and standardized components across all remaining types. Guderian snorts bitterly. You might as well ask the Führer to adopt jazz music and Coca-Cola. Speer raises a hand. The room stills. The report will be reclassified Führer only. All working copies were destroyed except these 3. Anyone who speaks of it outside this room will be shot. Is that clear? Nods all around. But the truth is a virus. By December 1943, it had already escaped. A junior draftsman at Henschel quietly mails the gear tolerances to his cousin at Skoda in occupied Czechoslovakia. An engineer at Maybach commits suicide, leaving a note. We murdered reliability for prestige. Frontline commanders begin writing private letters home. Send me anything but another Panther. January 1945. The numbers can no longer be hidden. A secret Panzer Commission report. never shown to Hitler lists. 500 Panzer IV final drives awaiting replacement parts, none exist. 370 Panther final drives cracked or completely seized, 128 Tiger I and 72 Tiger II tanks abandoned between the Vistula and the Oder with 0 battle damage, simply unable to move total Sherman losses in the same period. 4,317, replaced within 6 weeks by new production, in a frozen railway siding near Paderborn. American war correspondent Ernie Pyle watches a column of brand new jumbo Shermans roll off flat cars straight into battle. He writes, "They come out of the factories like Ford sedans, one every 7 minutes at Detroit alone, and every one of them runs." Back in Berlin, Speer sits alone in his office at midnight, reading the latest production tables. He opens his locked diary and writes a single paragraph that will not be published until 1970. "We believed that superior weapons would compensate for inferior numbers. We forgot that the enemy's most superior weapon was the ability to keep the inferior one running. 49,324 Shermans have been built. We will never build 10,000 Panthers. The war was lost the day the first American tank refused to break down in the desert." He closes the book, turns off the lamp, and for the first time in years allows himself to cry silent, furious tears for an empire that engineered its own grave with overcomplicated steel. Outside his window, snow begins to fall on the ruins of the city that once believed it could conquer the world with perfection. April 16, 1945. The Elbe River crossings, 18 kilometers southwest of Magdeburg, 05:41 a.m. A thin, cold mist drifts over the water like the breath of the dying Reich. On the eastern bank, the remnants of Wenck's 12th Army dig in among the willows. Boys in oversized greatcoats, old men from the Volkssturm, and one last King Tiger of Speer Panzer Abteilung 502 turret number 300, call sign, Letzte Rose. Its commander, Hauptmann Rolf Henning, 32 years old, 3 wounds, Knight's Cross with oak leaves, stands in the cupola scanning the far bank through Zeiss binoculars that cost more than most families earn in a year. The tank beneath him is immaculate. Fresh Zimmerit, 190 mm of frontal armor. The long 8.8 cm KWK-43 still wrapped in factory cosmoline at the muzzle. It has exactly 183 kilometers on the odometer and 42 rounds left in the racks. Across the river, 5 American M4's late production Easy 8s with 76 mm guns, HVSS suspension, wet stowage idle in a loose arrowhead. Their paint is sun-bleached, scarred, and anonymous. One has a cartoon pig painted on the glacis and the words Pork Chop Express. Another has a hand-painted scoreboard, 4 Tigers, 11 Panthers, countless half-tracks. The crews are brewing coffee on a Coleman stove balanced on the engine deck. Henning gives the order in a calm, almost bored voice. Panzer 1,200 meters Sherman fire. The King Tiger rocks. A tongue of orange flame licks the dawn. The 8.8 cm shell crosses the river in less than a second and punches straight through the lead Sherman Pork Chop Express at the turret ring. Secondary explosions ripple. The turret lifts half a meter and falls back crooked. 4 crewmen bail out burning. Henning allows himself the ghost of a smile. Then the remaining 4 Shermans do something unforgivable. They simply advance. No hesitation, no frantic reversing, no radio panic. They spread into a skirmish line, drop hull down behind a low railway embankment, and begin pumping 76 HVAP rounds across the river at the rate of a round every 4 seconds. The air fills with the whip crack of supersonic tungsten. Henning orders reverse. Nothing. The driver, Jeff Raider Willie Lang, screams over the intercom. "Final drive gone, Herr Hauptmann. She's locked solid. 183 kilometers. That is all the most powerful tank in history managed before its Achilles heel, the same overstressed final drive gears that failed at Hillersleben 2 years earlier finally snapped. The crew bails under a hail of .50 caliber tracer. Henning is last out. As he sprints for the tree line, he looks back once. A single Sherman serial USA 3,089,207. No name, no glory, rolls calmly up to the immobile 70-ton monster, lowers its blade, and with the casual indifference of a bulldozer clearing trash, pushes the King Tiger sideways into the Elbe. The splash is enormous. The river swallows the last rose. 2 weeks later, May 17, 1945, the roads of Bavaria and Bohemia. American combat cameramen film scenes that will be classified for decades. Near Pilsen, 31 brand new Panther OSF. GS lined up perfectly on a forest road, engines cold, guns elevated in surrender. Not one bears battle damage. Every single final drive has seized. At the Henschel factory in Kassel, 18 Tiger IIs still in primer paint, never delivered because there are no more spare gearboxes in the entire Reich. On the Autobahn near Berchtesgaden, a column of 47 Sherman, some still wearing D-Day invasion stars, rolls past a field containing 63 abandoned German tanks. A GI has chalked on one Sherman's fender, "We came, we saw, we kept driving." May 7, 1945. Reims. The surrender is signed. That same afternoon, a U.S. Army Ordnance Major named William Bembank walks through the captured Kummersdorf with a movie camera. He finds Hangar 7 exactly as the Germans left it. On a workbench sits a familiar object, the original herringbone gear set removed from War Daddy II in April 1943. They are still wrapped in old paper, labeled in neat German handwriting. Amerikanische Zahnrad unzerstörbar. American gear indestructible. Bembank picks one up, turns it in the sunlight, and laughs until he cries. The final tally, declassified in 1972. Total German tank production 1939-1945. Panzer IV, 8,553 Panther, 6,057 Tiger I, 1,347 Tiger II, 492 grand total, tilde 19, 500 combat tanks. Many never reached the front due to breakdowns or bombing. Total American M4 Sherman series production 1942-1945, 49,324, delivered plus 19,247 in British, Canadian, Soviet service under Lend-Lease grand total. Over 68,500 rolling off the lines. Average operational readiness rates, Western Front, January-April 1945. U.S. Armored Divisions, 88-94% German Panzer Divisions, 24-41%. The war did not end with wonder weapons. It ended with millions of tons of simple, boring, mass-produced steel that refused to stop moving. One last image, filmed by Signal Corps cameraman Sergeant Mike Popovich on May 9, 1945, in the ruins of Berlin. A lone M4A3 E8 Easy 8 hull number 3,089,207. The same tank that pushed the King Tiger into the Elbe is parked in front of the burned-out Reichstag. A GI has climbed the turret and bolted a hand-painted sign to the gun barrel. It reads in English and crudely translated German, 49,324 built, still counting. Thanks for the test drive. The camera pans up to the red flag flying over the shattered dome. Fade to black.